You think loneliness feels like sadness. It doesn't. It feels like functioning perfectly while slowly disappearing. A lonely man doesn't look broken. He looks stable, reliable, invisible. He wakes up, works, eats, scrolls, sleeps. No crisis, no drama. That's the trap. Loneliness isn't loud enough to trigger help, but strong enough to hollow him out. By the time he notices it, his inner world has already shrunk. Loneliness doesn't start with abandonment. It starts with usefulness, being needed, not known. Over time, he learns that value comes from performance, not presence. So he stops expressing and starts providing. Conversations become transactional. Emotions become inefficient. Slowly, he trains himself to need less, until he barely needs anyone at all. What looks like independence is actually emotional starvation dressed as strength. Men aren't taught to share confusion, only conclusions. So when loneliness appears, it has nowhere to go. It turns inward. He doesn't say, "I feel alone." He says, "I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm fine." Emotional compression becomes a survival skill. But compressed emotions don't disappear. They harden. What starts as loneliness slowly reshapes how he sees people: distant, demanding, replaceable. Reaching out requires hope. Hope requires memory. And memory reminds him how often effort wasn't met. So he adapts. He lowers expectations, then lowers contact, then lowers attachment. Eventually, silence feels safer than disappointment. Not because he hates people, but because he hates needing them. The absence of connection becomes predictable, and predictability feels like control. Lonely men are often admired, calm, independent, unbothered. But this isn't peace, it's emotional anesthesia. He doesn't feel much because he stopped allowing impact. Relationships require friction, vulnerability, risk. So he chooses numb efficiency instead. He confuses emotional quiet with maturity, not realizing he traded depth for stability. Over time, loneliness becomes an identity, not a condition. He doesn't feel lonely. He is the guy who doesn't need anyone. This belief protects him from rejection, but it also blocks connection. When someone gets close, his nervous system treats it like a threat. Intimacy feels invasive. Distance feels normal. History repeats this pattern. Warriors returning from war, industrial workers isolated by routine, men praised for endurance, not expression. Societies often survive by teaching men to absorb pressure silently. But silent absorption doesn't dissolve pain, it stores it. Across generations, loneliness masquerades as discipline. At first, distractions help: work, games, gym, noise. But loneliness adapts. The silence starts leaking through cracks. Even surrounded by sound, he feels absent. The mind, once numbed, starts craving something it forgot how to ask for: recognition. Not praise, presence. Loneliness doesn't just remove joy, it distorts judgment. He may choose unhealthy relationships just to feel something, or avoid healthy ones to protect numbness. Either way, loneliness becomes the invisible decision maker. The longer it stays unchallenged, the more normal it feels. You don't escape loneliness by being stronger. You escape it by being seen, something strength alone can't achieve. The uncomfortable truth is this: loneliness isn't cured by independence. It's challenged by risk. And that's exactly what the lonely man learned to avoid. Loneliness offers one thing relationships don't control: no misunderstandings, no rejection, no emotional debt. A lonely man learns that solitude never surprises him. People do. So he chooses the environment that can't hurt him unexpectedly. What he doesn't realize is that safety without connection slowly becomes psychological confinement. Emotions are like muscles. Unused ones weaken. When a man stops sharing, he also stops recognizing what he feels. Sadness blurs into fatigue. Anger becomes irritation. Joy feels muted. He isn't emotionless. He's emotionally undertrained. Loneliness doesn't erase feelings. It removes fluency. Lonely men often feel prematurely aged, not physically, but mentally. Life starts to feel repetitive, predictable, already seen. Novelty disappears because novelty requires shared experience. Without reflection from others, time collapses into routine. Days pass faster, but feel emptier. He watches others build families, friendships, inside jokes. He doesn't envy them openly. He rationalizes it away. That life isn't for me. But comparison still happens quietly. Each observation reinforces the idea that he's already missed the window. Loneliness convinces him that catching up is impossible. Here's the lie that keeps him stuck. If I mattered, someone would notice. So he waits, and waiting slowly becomes proof. The truth is harsher. Connection rarely comes to those who hide. Loneliness doesn't mean you're unwanted. It means you became invisible on purpose. Asking for help contradicts the identity he built. He survived alone. He adapted alone. So admitting loneliness feels like failure, not need. He fears that once exposed, he won't be respected, only pitied. So he carries it quietly, mistaking endurance for dignity. Extended loneliness subtly alters values. He may justify emotional distance, dismiss empathy, or minimize others' needs. Not because he's cruel, but because sustained isolation reduces emotional feedback. Without connection, moral sensitivity dulls. Loneliness doesn't just isolate, it reshapes perception. Loneliness isn't only psychological. It manifests physically: tight chest, shallow breathing, chronic tension. The nervous system stays alert, expecting nothing but prepared for loss. His body learns that connection is temporary, so it never fully relaxes. Brief conversations, eye contact, acknowledgement. These seem insignificant. But to a lonely mind, they're reminders of existence. Without them, identity weakens. Loneliness grows not from lack of love, but lack of recognition. Being unseen is more damaging than being unloved. The path out of loneliness begins where his defenses end, not with crowds, not with confidence, but with allowing one person to see him unfinished. That moment terrifies him, not because it's painful, but because it proves loneliness was never inevitable. Loneliness doesn't always feel painful. Sometimes it feels noble. He reframes isolation as independence, self-sufficiency, even strength. This narrative protects his ego from confronting the deeper truth. He didn't choose solitude freely. It grew around unresolved fear. Romanticizing loneliness turns a coping mechanism into an identity, making escape feel like betrayal of self. Connection threatens the structure he built. To be known is to be evaluated, possibly rejected, possibly misunderstood. Loneliness offers predictability. People introduce variables. So he keeps conversations shallow, emotions edited, history compressed. He isn't hiding from others. He's hiding from the risk of being accurately seen. Lonely minds rewrite the past. Rejections feel larger, successes smaller. Moments of closeness are remembered as flukes. This distortion protects him from hope, because hope demands vulnerability. Over time, memory becomes evidence against connection, even when the evidence is selectively edited. In social spaces, loneliness amplifies self-consciousness. Every pause feels loud. Every glance feels evaluative. He assumes others don't notice him, yet he notices everyone else intensely. This asymmetry reinforces invisibility, even when it isn't real. The room didn't erase him. His attention did. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Waiting for loneliness to pass is how it hardens. Time doesn't solve isolation. Action does. Every delayed message, declined invitation, unspoken feeling adds another layer. Loneliness isn't sudden. It's compounded. Work, entertainment, routines, they numb the signal, but don't remove it. Loneliness returns in quiet moments, late nights, early mornings, empty victories. Distraction treats symptoms, not causes. The mind still craves recognition, not noise. After long isolation, loneliness becomes familiar. Familiarity feels safer than change. He wonders who he'd be without it, and that uncertainty is frightening. Letting go of loneliness means rebuilding identity, not just social life. Loneliness doesn't require crowds to dissolve. It requires proof. One person who listens, one moment of being understood. The brain recalibrates when connection is real, not frequent. Quality rewires faster than quantity. Breaking loneliness demands a risk he's avoided, initiating without guarantees, reaching out without certainty, speaking before confidence arrives. This feels reckless to a lonely mind, but it's the only move that changes the board. You don't escape loneliness by becoming stronger. You escape it by becoming visible. If this felt uncomfortably familiar, don't scroll away from it. Sit with it. Then choose one action that contradicts isolation, because loneliness survives silence, not exposure.